This week we talk about
tourists,
tube meat,
and trainings.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week at the gathering at Scott's Memorial United Methodist Church, the longest church name this side of the Mississippi. Kelly.
Wishing everybody a blessed Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
It's the unofficial start to summer.
Get ready for those tourists.
Yep. If you're here
Here we
right
go.
now, that means you're not in traffic arguing with the kids in the back seat about who is the most loved amongst you. Eric.
What's going on?
Coming up is our summer small groups.
Yeah.
Lots of book clubs forming so that when you're at the beach, soaking in the sun, get out with sunscreen and proper coverage because you don't need cancer.
And we're not tourists.
And we're not. No.
We're
nope.
smarter than that, people.
Check out all of the summer small groups that are forming. There's a big flyer going around. Look through that. Find the one you want to join.
Lots
Join
of
a small
clubs.
group. Lots of book clubs.
Lots of book clubs. If you like reading, this summer is for you.
Yes.
Kelly,
Eric,
we know it's summer, and that means breaking
I
out.
stay inside because
It is
this girl don't tan.
Is boiling lava hot, but it is also time to break out your swimwear, Kelly, that has been in the attic since last year because apparently we don't have spring. We go right from winter to summer.
Yes.
And we have a great opportunity, a pool party.
Really? When?
June 15th from 5 to 7, we have rented an entire pool. Kelly, so bring bathing suits. There will be a belly flop competition. It's not on there, but I'm calling it. Best belly flop wins. My respect.
And also bring your own towels, the hot dogs, the chips, and the fun will be provided.
Which is really funny. We're at a Jewish center and we're having hot dogs. That's not kosher, Kelly.
Except Hebrew National is where it's at, people.
I hope that's where we're at.
Yes.
Kelly.
Eric.
Sometimes we get emails at the church and between us that we just can't answer. It is above our pay grade.
It is above, way above. I get paid nothing.
Yeah. Pastor Rachel has a very important announcement. Take it away.
Thank you, Eric and Kelly. That's right. We have lots of opportunities for you to worship each and every single Sunday. So I want to take a moment and describe them all. At 9 a.m., our first service of the Sunday is in the sanctuary. It's a traditional service which has organ, choir, piano, acolytes. It's exciting and a liturgical way to start your day. At 9:15, we have a service that begins in our fellowship hall. So if you like to eat bagels from Panera, drink hot coffee, and maybe have your kids with you in worship, you're welcome to join us at 9:15 in the fellowship hall with worship led by our band. At 10 o'clock, Bob Pearsall has a chapel-style service in his Sunday school class where they have communion on the first of the month. He preaches, they pray for each other. It's a cozy, intimate worship experience. And then at 10:15 in the sanctuary, where the band goes in there to lead worship, it's the same sermon at 9, 9:15, and 10:15, but it is there in the sanctuary. And you're invited to come. If you miss out on Sunday morning worship for some reason, then you're welcome to join us at 8 p.m. on Sunday evenings when Sunday morning sermon is included for you again. Or if you went in the morning and just want to hear it again, that's another great opportunity to listen to it or to share it with friends or family that you think would like to hear the message as well. But this summer, we're adding in an additional service that is going to be unique and totally unlike anything we've done before. It's called Messy Church. It's a movement that started in Great Britain, and it will be moving into the life of the gathering the fourth Friday of every month in the fellowship hall starting at 6 o'clock. So here's what I love. You get off work, you don't have to worry about dinner, you pick up your kids, you come to church, a hot, free meal is provided for you and all of your kids as you eat together. There are questions that guide your mealtime discussion, and when you're done eating, there are anywhere from 6 to 10 different stations where you can talk through and experience and interact with the Word of God as a family. And all the stations, there are different ones if you have younger kids or if you have older kids, so that you can explore as few or as many of those stations as you would like. And then we circle up together towards the end of our time between 7 and 7:30 for a time of worship, singing a song or two and praying. And then you get home by 8 o'clock on Friday night and you've been to church. So you can do whatever you want on Saturday, whatever you want on Sunday, and know that you have kicked off your weekend by gathering together as a family to worship God. So join us for Messy Church starting this June.
So Eric, we have meandered from summer small groups to summer pool parties, and now we're going to small group training.
Like we're on the lazy river in a water park.
Conveniently happening during summer. Saturday, June 9th from 9 to 12 is our small group training. Sarah Branch will be leading these trainings. Come on out if you are currently leading a small group or you would like to lead a small group.
Yeah.
Maybe all of these summer small group book clubs are inspiring to you and you want to create one of your own now or in the fall or later. Come on out, sign up, talk to Sarah. She'll give you more information.
Now it's time for quotable quotes.
This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. 1 John 3:16.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the gathering at Scott Memorial Home Edition. I'm Pastor Rachel coming to you with this Sunday sermon. All right, so sometimes you can't always trust what you read on the internet. For instance, there is a quote here commonly attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson, which says, "Life is a journey, not a destination." Well, I love Ralph Waldo Emerson, but I hate this quote because it's just not true. And thankfully, he never said it. So don't always believe what you read online. Thank you, Pinterest, or whoever it is that came up with this gorgeous image for us this evening. Okay, so what do I mean by that? That life is about the destination as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, the journey matters, but when I think about trips that I've taken, if I bought a ticket and I wanted to go see London and so that I could see Buckingham Palace and I end up in Las Vegas to see Caesar's Palace, even if the journey was exciting, I would be a little disappointed and frustrated that the destination wasn't what I'd paid for. The destination matters. Or if you think about the journey, a journey I will never again take, but was beautiful for the 2 seasons I did, the journey of pregnancy. It was wonderful to feel life move inside of you and to prepare for this little baby. But the destination of the journey of pregnancy, ideally, hopefully, is to hold that child. That's why we go through the fatigue and the nausea and the swollen ankles, because we want that baby in our arms. Or if I just even predate the pregnancies with my 2 beautiful elementary age kids and go back to when I first fell in love, that journey of falling in love, especially when you fall in love with the hottest, most amazing man on earth, like my husband, it's an exciting place to be, and yet I don't want to date someone aimlessly with no purpose or plan. I want him to put a ring on it, which he did. And now I had that destination of saying, okay, I have a partner who's willing to make a commitment that for the rest of their life, we're going to walk together on whatever journeys may come our way. So yes, journeys matter, but destinations matter as well. So when you think about your destination and where you're going and what life is about, there are 2 major approaches that people take for their lives, that have been popular since like Aristotle. Okay, so Aristotle would talk about this as well. And one approach is pursuing happiness, which in Greek is hedonia. The other is pursuing meaning or purpose, which is eudaimonia. And so New York Magazine in December of 2016 had an article that said in 2017, pursue meaning, not happiness, because scientific research has shown that people who seek to just be happy and have their needs met end up statistically less happy than those who pursue purpose or meaning in their life. This goes along with what Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount, when he says blessed, or another translation for that is happy. Blessed, happy are those who mourn, who are poor in spirit, who hunger and thirst for righteousness. These are not people seeking to feel good. These are people who endure difficult situations and rise above because they found a greater purpose or meaning in their life. So there is a researcher from the University of Ottawa. Her name is Veronica Huda, and she talks about what the difference is between this hedonia and eudaimonia approach to life. So if you are the kind of person that pursues happiness, what that means is what matters to you is what you desire, your own pleasure, your enjoyment, your satisfaction. You want the path of least resistance, right? You want life to be easy and free from distress. You want your life to be about what feels good. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're pursuing eudaimonia and more of meaning and purpose, then what you are striving for is authenticity, is excellence, is personal growth. You're investing in something over the long term. So your life is not about what feels good, but what feels right. So what does this mean for us? Well, if you are the kind of person that is pursuing meaning and purpose, it doesn't only mean that you'll end up being statistically happier, but it also means that you will live longer and have a healthier life than those who are not pursuing meaning and purpose. So Time Magazine in August of 2017 found that if you have purpose to your life, it helps you live longer, lower your risk of disease, it helps you sleep better, and then as you age, your grip stays stronger and your ability to walk faster stays with you into your older years. If you have purpose, if you have meaning and a reason to exist. So how do we look in scripture and figure out if I want a life of meaning and purpose? What does that mean? Where do I go? What is my destination? If you read through the Old Testament, the destination, the place that everyone was seeking to go to was the promised land, right? And it begins with Abraham, the very first person to leave everything they had and owned to follow this voice, this God that said, you know, I know that you are a 75-year-old wealthy guy with a hot wife and no kids. I want you. In Genesis 12, he says to just leave and go to the place I will show you. And the place that he shows him in Shechem, right outside of Canaan, is that promised land. And he says, I will give this land to your offspring. So the destination wasn't something that Abraham would reach himself, but something that his offspring, that those who came after him, would be able to enjoy. And if you look at the land of Canaan, I love it. And I love thinking that we are all, even to this day, on a journey towards the promised land. And I'm not saying that we need to go home, pack a suitcase, and all fly out to the Middle East together to reclaim Canaan for Christ, because the Crusades already happened, didn't really go well, wasn't a good idea. I'm not talking about physically dwelling in the promised land, but if we look at what the promised land provided for God's people in the Old Testament, it's something that we would want for our lives as well. So you look at Canaan, and there are rivers in the land of Canaan. So people have water that they can drink. They have ways to irrigate their farmland. It also had the ocean, so they could send stuff out. They could send out messages. They could travel and explore. It also had things like the Dead Sea, which was not fresh water, right? Very salty. And it's a reminder to me that even in the promised land, there are places of bitterness, places that are not always easy. The promised land doesn't protect you from heartache. The same way being blessed or happy, as Jesus says in the New Testament, doesn't mean that you will be free from mourning or that you won't be poor in spirit. And if you look at a map of where Canaan was actually located, what I love about this map is that it shows us that Canaan is like smack dab in the middle of Egypt and Mesopotamia, two major world powers that were trying constantly to take over this promised land and were a constant threat. So even when we reach a promised land, it doesn't mean that we don't have to protect our boundaries or stand guard and make sure that we don't lose that which we receive in the promised land. So why was the promised land so important? Well, it was in those days when everyone was moving, when everything was uncertain, the promised land gave them a home. It gave them a community, someplace where they would belong and an identity beyond themselves. And if I think about my life today and what I want for myself and my kids, I want a promised land as well. I want a home. I want a place to belong, a community that knows me, an identity beyond myself. I want something that is stable. So when we think about the promised land being our destination, how do we get there? What was it that led God's people from where they were into this land? Well, there were a couple of steps they had to take. And the first we see with Moses, right? As he goes to Egypt after 400 years in slavery to free God's people, the very first step is a willingness to walk away from your old life. And even though these people had been tortured and were crying out to God for help, save us from slavery, when the time came to leave, they were like, wait, this is all we've known. Maybe this is all that we're good for. And maybe you feel when you wake up in the morning that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not successful enough. Why should I leave my old life behind? There's sin, there's shame, there's frustration, there's fear. I can't walk away from that, Lord. But an essential step to moving on towards that destination, continuing that journey towards the promised land, is to be willing to walk away from things that enslave us, that keep us from freedom, and say enough is enough. God's love, God's grace is good enough and will sustain me on my journey through the Red Sea into freedom as I pursue the promised land myself. So the first step is a willingness to walk away. The next step is this realization that this is a journey that takes time and takes struggle. I mean, Abraham, right? From Abraham to Moses, you have like 600 years. And even Moses in his mid-80s, when he goes to confront Pharaoh and he frees all of God's people, finds out he has 40 more years in the wilderness before they can enter the promised land. We live in a culture that lives and thrives on immediacy. We are a microwave culture, and that's not the way this journey works. Our destination may be the promised land, but it's going to take a while to get there, and we are going to struggle. The third thing about pursuing this promised land in our own lives is that it's going to require humility and obedience. You know, it always frustrated me that Moses gave so much and was such a strong and virtuous leader, and yet God wouldn't allow him to enter the promised land. He had to die right outside of it, looking on this land that would never be his home. Why did that happen? Well, if you look at the story in Numbers 20, you realize that the people were grumbling. They were thirsty, and God said, okay, they're thirsty. Moses, Aaron, what I want you to do is, Moses, take your staff, go over to that rock. Tell that rock to pour forth water, and it will. And so Moses and Aaron gather all the people together, and Moses doesn't talk to the rock. He takes his staff and he hits it twice, and then he says, in essence, do Aaron and I have to do everything around here, guys? So what he was doing was saying, you know what, I'm not going to obey God's commands. I'm going to give it a twist. I'm going to do it my own way. And I'm not going to give God the credit. I'm going to take the credit for this. To follow God and to make it to that promised land, we need to do so with humility and with obedience. And my dad was telling me a story the other day about a guy named Barry Black, who was the chief of chaplains, I think, and a Senate chaplain as well, friend of my father's. And they were talking one day about like the three biggest fears that people who are elderly have as they approach and think about their death. And Barry said the first fear is that their body will outlive their mind. The second fear that they have is that they will outlive their mourners. So everyone they love, all their meaningful relationships will be gone, and they will spend their final days or weeks or months or years without anyone who knows them or will miss them when they're gone. And then the third fear that he mentioned was that they will drown in shallow water, which is to say they've spent their whole life trying to do and be the right thing and the right person. And in their final moments, they will fall short. They will drown in shallow water instead of continuing on, following through to reach that final destination, the way Moses fell short as well. So how do we as Christians right now, wherever you are, take stock of that and focus on that destination so we can achieve our final goal? Well, Habakkuk 2:2-3 gives us some insight into this. What it says there is, the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain on tablets so that a runner may read it. For there is still a vision for the appointed time. It speaks of the end and does not lie. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. So what this tells me is that so often we don't stop and take pause and say, where am I going? And actually write it down, not on a scrap piece of paper or on your Sunday morning bulletin, but on a tablet, like Habakkuk said, something with permanence, something substantial, something that you will see, and not only see, but it says, you know, something that a runner may read, a messenger. This vision, this goal, this destination isn't just for you, it's for you to share. So others can hold you accountable, and so you can let them know where you're going so they too can reach out and attempt to arrive at that final destination as well. And it takes time, as Habakkuk says, you know, that it seems to tarry, but wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. So when we know our destination and we are focused on reaching it and we keep that vision at the forefront of all that we say and do, then we, my friends, can look forward to being in the promised land, a place of belonging and purpose, a home. Thanks be to God. Amen. Have a great night, guys. I'll see you next Sunday.